The Public Tick IPM Working Group conference call for May of 2018. The Public Tick IPM Working Group is funded by the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture, Crop Protection, and Pest Management Program through the North Central IPM Center. On today's agenda, we have tick distribution and mapping presentation and discussion, and that's including a presentation from Scott Isard, and if Julie is able to make the call, Julie Gollad, on how we could potentially use iPiPE as a central database tool for tick information collection. After the presentation, we'll discuss any other updates to the tick pest alert and the new resources we want to create for mosquito control districts, professionals, and veterinarians. Lastly, we will cover any additional updates, comments, or group announcements. So if everyone who's on their computer, see Scott's screen here. I do also want to specify that in GoToMeeting, it's good to mute yourself, and you can do that in the left corner. And during the presentation, you can also use the chat box, which is just down the GoToMeeting column. Click the chat, and then you can enter questions there, and we can them and make sure we address them at the end. So without further ado, we can get to our presentation. Tom Green reached out to Scott Isard a little while ago because we thought that iPiPE could be a potential option to provide an affordable facility for ongoing collection of expert vetted observations and also publication of real-time tick and tick-borne disease distribution maps that will enhance ongoing research and education efforts. So just as a little background, iPiPE stands for Integrated Pest Information Platform for Extension and Education. Scott Isard is a professor of aerobiology in the departments of plant pathology, environmental microbiology, and meteorology and atmospheric sciences at Penn State University. Scott has been our liaison, our iPiPE expert, and he agreed to give a presentation on today's call. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Scott.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Frank. Can everybody hear me? Well, I'm going to assume everybody can hear me unless they say otherwise. And you should have on your screen the participant, the homepage of the participant website. It's a restricted website for members of iPiPE, which if you want to be, your group would be. iPiPE is a NIFA-funded CAP, Collaborative Agricultural Project, and our central, our mission or our vision is to create a culture of sharing observations of pests and beneficial organisms in agriculture. So to build towards a culture where we share in real time observations. And we use these observations to inform management decisions, to run models. We have an IPM objective. We're funded out of the food security program, so we're in part creating an infrastructure to respond to food security issues, particularly pest problems at the regional or local scale. And we're really open to sharing in many ways, and that's what attracted me to your group when Tom Green mentioned the possibility of collaborating. It's in terms of there's no cost involved for you as long as we're supported by the USDA grant, and we will be for at least another couple years. And we also have support for the platform beyond that to some extent. So what I mean, I can take questions on what iPiPE's about, or what I really plan to do is show you the kinds of tools and mapping capabilities that we have to offer. And then at that point, maybe we should talk a little bit about how we share data, and I should field any questions you have. So I'm just going to log into the site. And what I'm showing you now is our demonstration site. It's our beta site. I don't like to play around on what we call our production site in case I make a mistake and throw in, I don't want to put in data and stuff like that that shouldn't be there. This just happens to be the landing page of the iPiPE, and I'm not going to go through everything or anything about this landing page. It's really tailored to me and what tools I've used recently and frequently, and some observations that have come in for my pests and crops of interest. But what I want to do is show you kind of what we have to offer you in terms of first inputting information into the iPiPE, and then mapping it, because that's really what you want. So over here under this menu, we have the roles, and you know, once you become a participant, you get assigned to you have certain roles in the organization, in the system. You of course would have an observer role, and you would want to be a map maker role. I have a whole bunch of roles just for development purposes. In the observer role, there's a data entry tool, and if we go to that tool, it comes up like this. There's forms, there's a form tab, there's an entry tab, and there's a history tab. Since this is a beta site, test site, we created a form for entering data on ticks. We just made this up. This would be a form that your group would populate. You would create the fields that you would need. You'd have to come together and come up with a protocol in the sense of what fields. We just guessed at them. Certainly an observation date, and this could be filled automatically, maybe not in your case. And then some geographic parameters. We do everything, you know, in as much as we can in drop downs. And so you could collect this, you know, select a state and a county. You can put in a latitude and longitude where, in this case, the tick was collected. If you wanted a habitat field, we could fill that with a drop-down menu if you wanted to restrict the options. If you wanted to have it an open text field, we can do that too. We would ask you for a list of tick species, and we just made up some stuff here. And they could be the common names, or they could be the real names, or both. And then you would pick whatever fields you want, maybe a presence absence field, a lab. We could have a pull down here for lab names, or it could be an open field, a text field like I made here. You can have any kinds of fields that you want. It's very easy to for us to make these forms. Now, what I'm showing you now is, a form that you fill out on the computer. But this form could also be very easily a form for a smart device. Any smart device. So it could be a smartphone, or it could be you know, any any kind of smart device. So in other words, we have created apps. They're free, and the same form that would be on the computer would be in the app if you would like it. So this is where you would enter data from a lab. You can also edit data in this tool. I go to history. I don't have anything for 2018. I think I had some for 2017, maybe. If I go to all users, maybe I get some. Yeah. So again, this is a trial site, but this just happened to be one of the forms, and I can go in here and edit the form later if I figured I made a mistake or the diagnosis was updated or something like that. I can go into the system and edit my own observations. I can't edit anybody else's observations, just my own observations. So that's pretty much the observer role. We would make the forms that you need, and each of the participants in your working group would register iPiPE, and then would have access to input data into the system. Now, I want to show you the map maker role, and in particular, the map and model tool in that role. And it comes up like this and has two main menus. One is a calendar. And here, let me, again, because I haven't put data in this year, into the beta system. Let's go to 2017. And then this, I can adjust the calendar this way, or I can do it this way, but let's just do it with the slides. Okay, and then I'll just close the calendar, get it off my map. And then I have the main menu here, and I can put different kinds of, well, I can put a satellite map, use that as a base map, but I'll stick to the basic map just because it's faster. And filters really are the organisms. I wonder whether we kind of put in the, no, we didn't in this. I want to go to something I know we have data on, so let's go to the brown marmorated stink bug. I know I have a lot of data here, and so I set the filter to an insect. It could be a tick species. It could be all tick species if you wanted to. And these are the observations that are in the system that occurred within the calendar date window, which was in, between the 1st of January and the 15th of September in 2017. Calendar is a nice feature because I can play with it, right? So I can see how the observations, came in during the year, which is really fun and can be useful at the same time. Now, let's see, I'm going to keep that. No, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to diminish that and look at data. Views, for you, I think it's going to be exactly what I'm showing here, which is presence, absence. But you could, if you're counting ticks at a location, you could have an abundance map. We also have a severity map coming online on the production site very shortly for diseases. But looking at your map, I think what you want is presence, absence data. You can zoom in, as much as you want. You can pan to Pennsylvania in this case, zoom in a little bit more, get the counties there. And you notice there's different kinds of symbols here. the square represents data that has been shared to me that was input by others that I didn't input, or people in my group, and I'll talk about what a group is later, did not input. And so one of the rules in iPiPE is data that is shared to another participant is shared to at the county level of resolution. So it appears on this map. The squares appear on this map at the centroid of the county. Circle data is data that I put in, or data that people in my immediate group put in. So that would be the TIC working group put in, and that's shared at the level of resolution that it was entered into the system, which in most of the cases here, it's a GPS coordinate. All right. And you can query the data on the map, see that there's 3 unique points, locations in that county centroid that I clicked on. So actually those data come from 3 different locations. There's actually 4 observations. 3 of them are present, and 1 of them was an absence observation. I can go in and query the individual observations. Since they're not, well, in this case, I guess I did click on one of my points because it shows latitude and longitude. If I hadn't entered the system, it wouldn't show that. I can look at these, data in different ways. So I can query the data in the system. Now, we also have data sources. And so we have group data, or my data, or summary data, and if I turn off the summary data, then all the squares disappear. The 2s tell me that there's 2 observations there in that point. The purple tells me, red tells me that I found the insect in this case. Green says I didn't find it. Purple says I found it in one observation and didn't find it in another observation, or the other way around. Here, the circle with the hole in it tells me that even though it's my data, I entered it at the county level of resolution. I used geographic coordinates, and I used political coordinates to enter the data. So I entered it, state and county designations. I didn't use my GPS to enter it. We also have observation types. You can stratify for observation types, and so you guys would probably, if you're entering lab data, it would be certified lab data. I suspect I don't. Maybe I have some. I had some extension data in here that would be data put into the system by extension specialists, in this case in my group. This is diagnostic tests in the field. I don't think I have that. And of course, most of the data was unconfirmed. So you could make maps with just, you would form a group. We would form you into a group so that you could share data at point locations, and you could make maps with just the certified data, lab data on them, or you could add other unconfirmed data as well. A lot of what we do in iPiPE is modeling, pest risk assessment modeling. It doesn't apply, as far as I know, to your group, and so I don't want to, bog you down with what we do there. Before I go on and talk about sharing and talk about groups, is there any questions that people want to ask about the mapping capabilities?
Hi, do you have any automated upload method for this, or is this all manual entry of data?
Okay, we do have, That is a great question, and I should have covered it. I'm going to go back to the observer role, data entry tool, and let's say the tick observation form. Okay, so we work with your group to figure out what the fields should be, what you want the fields to be in the data entry. And then we download, in your case, we download a template. And this template, I'm not going to do it now because I'm on the beta site and things will mess up if I do this now. But what will happen is it will create an Excel spreadsheet. And it will be empty. And you can copy and paste from an existing Excel spreadsheet, or you can create one as you go along and fill it up. And this way, if we think ahead of time, if you have historical data, we can get it into the system, right? By creating the fields very much like your fields already. And then as you go on and add data to the Excel spreadsheet, you just upload it. You'd hit the upload button and you'd upload it, and it's smart enough to know to look and just put the new data into the system. Does that answer your question? Is that something you would think would be useful? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That is very useful. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, and so we could design that, the part of all this that would take the most work would be figuring out with you what you want to record and doing it in a way that's convenient for you to perhaps input historical data into the system. But we can work through that. That's just a matter of coordination. We can adjust the tools, the fields, however you want. Any other questions? Okay, so what I want to do now is talk about sharing. And so I'm going to bring, and Frank will send you this document, send it out to everybody after today, But iPiPE is really concerned about the privacy and the professionalism of our participants. Data privacy is a big issue now, and so we've really developed a set of rules that works, in agriculture, seems to work in agriculture, and it's a set of rules that have evolved over the last 15 years that we've been doing this kind of running this kind of platform. And I just, we'll share the whole rule set with you, but what I've done is I extracted from that rule set some of the rules that I think would be very pertinent to your group, and also then made comments about them. All right, so you got to become, to participate in our iPiPE, you have to register. And you register, you give us your name and your email, essentially. And you have to, the currency in iPiPE, we don't charge money, we charge observations. You have to agree to share observations according to the rules. And couple of important definitions here is authorized iPiPE participant are individuals who agree to contribute observations of pests or beneficial organisms. Ticks qualifies, and you have to agree to our sharing rules. And so I would think that if you go ahead with this and are willing to collaborate with us, then all the members of the public tick IPM working group who are identifying ticks and want to map them would become authorized participants. second definition that would be important to you is the idea of a group. In iPiPE, as I said, we share observations at the county level of resolution, except we allow the formation of groups, and this could be members of crop consulting company, or in this case, members of the TIC working group, and members of the group can share observations at the resolution that they were entered into the system. So you would be able to see each other's observations, if you're a member of the group, at the latitude and longitude that they were collected at, or that was recorded when you put in the data. So others would not. Others would see your data on maps in the system at the county level of resolution. So that's kind of definitions, background definitions. We have some data sharing rules. All observations become property of the system to be shared, as I just explained. However, you, of course, own your own observations outside the system. We also are very concerned about research, future research. So one of our rules is that after 3 years, we will share the observations with our national data repository, and that is Bugwood at the University of Georgia. That's overseen by Joe LaForest. And so, that's a sharing rule that you'd have to be willing to accept. In terms of viewing, I've already gone through this. You see your own observations at point locations. You'd see those that are in the group at point locations, but you would only see data that's shared to you at the centroid, county centroid, and other participants would see your data at the county centroid. Unless, of course, you could indicate that you want everybody to see it at the level of resolution it was entered, but that's your option as an individual. In terms of export rules, since you can always export your own data. You can make maps of your own data and export it, but you can't export maps with data that's been shared to you, except if you're in a group. And if you form a group, and this is the way I would advise you to go, is form a TIC working group. The leader of that group could export maps with data shown on it, contributed by all members of the group, right? And I think that's probably what you want. And once you export that map, you can do what you want with it. We can set up groups so that everybody who's a member of the group is also a leader of the same group, right? So groups could have multiple leaders, and so all the members of the working group could be group leaders of the same group and could then export maps. Anybody who's an iPiPE participant can enter data on any organism in which we provide functionality for, right? And so anybody who's a participant could enter data on the pest species that we set up for you, on the tick species that we set up for you. However, unless they were in the group, they wouldn't be certified labs, right? And authorized labs. And so their data would have a different observation type associated with it. And so when you made maps, you could screen those data that weren't contributed by the group out. So that's the data submission rule. So that's essentially my presentation. I'll handle any kinds of questions. Frank will send this document to you. So let me open it up to questions.
A reminder that you may be muted if you're trying to talk and people can't hear you. There is a mute button in the top left corner of the GoToMeeting. If you're unable to make that work, you can also use the chat box for questions.
Hi, this is Chris over at US Biologic. I was just curious, when you're looking at the data coming in, what sort of data validation are you looking at when people self-enter the data?
Okay, so that's why we have our observation type categories. Right? We allow in iPiPE, we encourage growers and crop consultants and others to enter data on the organisms that we provide the capability for. Their data comes in and it's unconfirmed, assuming they're not an extension specialist or they're not associated with a lab or the government. Their data comes in as unconfirmed. And so it's in the system. It can be mapped, right? It shows up as a different symbol on the maps. It can be screened out. I mean, it can be, you can choose which observation types you want to map, but it's in there. So we do not provide, we don't screen the data that is coming in that way. We don't. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. Thank you.
One of the ways that extension professionals have used these, that capacity in the past is they've seen data that's come in that is obviously wrong to them or doesn't seem to be, the right pest or whatever. And in our apps and the mobile devices, people can take pictures and submit that with their observations. And so extension specialists have the potential to use those unconfirmed observations, almost as a teaching or an outreach, and reach back to people and explain some of the errors, that are being made in terms of entry. And there hasn't been a lot of that going on, but there's that potential in there to do that.
Great. Are there any other questions for Scott at this time? I guess I have a question for the group, for people who are currently collecting data. Are people using Excel sheets for that primarily to track species, stages, etc.? Or is there other tools that people are using that would be less compatible with this database?
Frank, this is Tom Mather. So ours goes into a Excel spreadsheet, but I know from other work that we've done, if you're not the one that sets up the template, then there's a lot of work involved to kind of get it configured so it gets pulled in correctly.
Well, we have some flexibility. I mean, Julie can answer this better than I, but we have some flexibility how we can set up the templates in iPiPE, maybe to match what has been done in the past in terms of Excel spreadsheets.
Hi, Frank. This is Heather. We have custom database, but everything can be exported out of there and put in Excel. And then it's not a big deal to configure it into something that's compatible with iPiPE. That's not a problem for us.
That's good to know. Thanks for weighing in on that, Tom and Heather. Are there any other questions, or do we want to continue down the agenda? I'd say questions or comments.
Yeah, I'm curious. What do people think? Think this has potential to save us some work versus what we were talking about prior to, with and potentially be an ongoing facility that we can keep up to date without a whole lot of work?
I haven't thought about it too much. This is Tom Mather, but I would be concerned, with the various verification of various users, and then potentially you compiling data based on that. That would just be something that I'd want to think through a little bit more.
So Tom, in terms of are you thinking in terms of mapping?
Yeah, there are several schemes out there for collecting data. So it seems like in a lot of what you're doing, you have some cooperators and you're inputting your own. So that's more of an active surveillance. I think a lot of what this group is thinking about are passive surveillance methods. Like I know Heather and ours are, they're crowdsourced for the most part. And there are other crowdsourced data out there as well. But my big concern is who's verifying the records, and or are they even being verified? And you start putting it in, and then you had, well, this is data that I put in, this is data that other people put in, but ultimately it's going to fill into one shared map.
Not necessarily.
Well, just hear me out. So I'm just guessing it potentially could be, but then I'd argue that that's fairly corrupted, and I don't really, why would I want my data to be put into a system? I mean, I'm not even sure I would want to do that, because I appreciate that you were sensitive to the privacy issue of it and the exporting issue, but if I had a $500,000 USDA grant to provide that data, that'd be one thing. But if I'm doing it out of the goodness of my heart, I've got to pay our bills, and so having that data out there, I would question. Then everybody would have the same benefit of my data as I do.
Everybody, okay. So there was a couple of issues you mentioned, and I may not address them.
I don't mean to sound greedy. I'm just practicality. I mean,
right.
Verifying our records, and I have to pay those people to do that, or myself. And you're saying, oh yeah, you get to use our system, and the payment is by free sharing of your data. That's really nice, but all of the people on my end are on soft money, and so we are constantly just trying to do good with very little resources, and so we all want to do the same thing, and I see some value in this, but we need to figure out what's going to be the motivation and incentive for. I mean, maybe Heather, she's in a little bit similar boat, but she's in a slightly different boat than I'm in because she has a revenue stream attached to her data collection. So there may be more of a willingness there than in a case like mine where I have a free portal for collecting the information.
Right, I understand that. What I can, all I can say, I mean, that's, you're going to have to think over that hard. But other people cannot take the data, take your data out of the system, right? If they're a participant, they can view it, but they can't export it from the system. Only you can export your data. And when you map, right, you have the capacity to show the types of data on that map that you want. Granted, there's only 5 types, right? And your type would be one of the higher types, which would be, you know, a authorized lab, you know, what we call an OT type, it would be OT2. And so you could choose to map only those authorized lab data on your map, and you could, you know, and then you could export that map with the data shown on it, but the only thing that would come out of that, you know, would come to you would be that map with your data on it. Nobody else's data can be shown. The one exception to that is if a number of you and Heather decided to form a group. And then, again, and then if you map certified lab data, all the certified lab data would show up. That's been entered in the system, but if you exported a map, it would only have your data and Heather's data on it. Right. So that's one of the ways we preserve the privacy of the data. Now, it may not serve your purposes at all, right? It may not really address your point, but you know, that's how the iPiPE functions.
Yeah, this is Tom Green. So, Tom, this is really kind of a key thing that we're working on this year with iPiPE, strategic planning and doing some market research and figuring out what the issues are for people to participate. And, you know, in your case, being able to access these other observations may not be a sufficient incentive for you to participate. And you've got, you know, a large data set that's of value to a lot of people to have in here. And so it may be that we need to work on some kind of collaborative model. At some point, you know, iPiPE is not going to be free to use. The grant's going to be over, and we're all going to be, you know, looking for revenue to keep it going and make it available as a tool on some kind of fee basis. And so it may be that we need to work together, or put money in the working group budget to compensate for expenses that collaborators are incurring, including any fee that we have to pay to iPiPE to use this facility. You know, and that would be weighed against what other options are out there. But at this point, I think it'd be a good opportunity to pilot this and see how it goes while we've got free access, and individuals will have to make their own decisions about what and whether they want to contribute data. But we could potentially get it up and running with little cost this year, and then see how it goes, and be involved in this discussion with the iPiPE team about how do we make this sustainable long term and meet the needs of people for observations. You know, if I'm a farmer, maybe I've got enough incentive to contribute observations just to be able to see observations other people have contributed because the pest might be coming my way. And that's not going to be the situation with every potential user. So let me figure that out.
Thanks. I mean, I just am thinking about a lot of things. I mean, we've worked on some of these thoughts with the with the working group, the HHS working group subcommittee as well. If this was something that was deemed important for prevention or prevention education or just surveillance in general of tick populations, I think that then appropriate dollars should be put forward, not just to support the platform, but to also support the people that are contributing to the platform. Platform is only as good as the people's observations going into it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was very good discussion, and I think we'll have to probably talk more about this future. Thank you for your presentation, Scott. That was really informational, and it's good to know about more about iPiPE and how it can be used.
You're welcome.
So there are a few more agenda items that I'd like to get to in the last 12 minutes here, specifically talking about updating the tick pest alert. And then I know there are a few members on the call who had some other updates they wanted to discuss. So if there's no other pressing questions or comments regarding iPiPE, then we can move down the agenda. All right. Sounds good. We will continue on and we'll talk next about updating the tick pest alert and creating new resources through the working group grant. So this past month we had talked about adjusting some of the language in the tick pest alert. Someone had mentioned that we might consider moving the statement in the first paragraph about Lyme disease. And then was over email, there was a little bit of discourse or discussion where it was like, that's a really impactful statement about vector-borne diseases, and it may be most useful to keep it in there, but make it less specific. So I think the option that seemed most approachable was changing this sentence. Lyme disease accounts for over 90% of all reported human vector-borne disease, with an estimated 300,000 cases annually, to tick-borne diseases account for over 90% of all reported human vector-borne diseases, 300,000 cases annually. And with that, I would say we could use the CDC estimated cases for the other common tick-borne diseases and add that to the 300,000 number to be a little more accurate to all tick-borne diseases. I think it would be difficult to account for those other diseases regarding the 90% of all human reported vector-borne diseases, but I could also consider adding those numbers up against a total estimate by the CDC for vector-borne diseases. How do people feel about that adjustment?
This is Jill. I like the idea of the adjustment. You could say Lyme and tick-borne diseases rather than just tick-borne diseases. And it seems to me that Ben Baird does have a chart that shows the amount of vector-borne diseases divided into tick-borne diseases, divided into tick diseases and mosquito diseases, and I'm trying to think the other vector. But I'm fairly certain that they do have that.
Okay. All right, I'll try to track that down, and if you find it, Jill, and could send it my way, that'd be great. I think the adjustment to remove Lyme in that opening paragraph I think that was kind of the point. I think just because that makes it more approachable in areas where Lyme is not a factor at all, to make it general to tick-borne diseases.
Fine with me.
Okay. And then regarding the maps that are currently on the National Pest Alert from 2013, I haven't been able to get a hold of Rebecca Eisen regarding when the CDC maps will be updated. As people may have seen, Heather from Technology created a few mock-up maps using their information, and also report information. And so I guess I'm wondering how we want to move forward with the distribution of the tick pest alert and those specific maps, which we know to be kind of, at least for certain species, out of date at this point. All right, well, we may have to, oh, go ahead, whoever that was. Okay, well, I was about to say we may have to consider what's more valuable, the distribution of the tick pest alert with the CDC maps that are currently on there versus waiting to do a second push of the tick pest alert until we can get updated maps. So with that on the back burner, I guess, for the moment, I'd like to talk a little bit about the other two resources that we said we would provide in our working group grant, which, based on previous conversations, sounds like could be an overlapping resource. Pretty much we had discussed putting together a resource that incorporates different integrated tick management strategies. And that resource would be provided to pest management professionals, and then we would also provide that to mosquito control districts, and then the updated National Pest Alert would get distributed to veterinarians. So I'm wondering who on the call would like to work closely with me regarding different ITM strategies to get started on a draft of those multiple tools. I know that the idea originally came from the U.S. Biologic Lyme Shield, so I would guess that I could work with you guys, Mason and Chris, and then use some other people's information regarding the other tools that are out there.
Yep, standing by. Just let me know how we can help.
That sounds good. I think the first step will just be reviewing a draft of information. Okay, well, there's 4 minutes remaining at this point of today's call, and so I'd like to just open the floor briefly to see if anyone else has announcements about upcoming events or things that they want to let everyone else on the call know about.
Frank, I have a chart of the what I spoke about with Lyme, tick-borne diseases compared to mosquito-borne diseases, et cetera. It's a chart of all vector-borne diseases from the CDC, I think for 2014. So I can send that to you, and I'm sure they've accumulated the same thing, but we can ask them about it.
Great, thank you. That'll be very useful. Jill, I know there was a few other comments that you posted recently to the group regarding repellents. Do you want to speak about that at all?
I didn't hear what you said. Regarding what?
Certain repellents, modes of actions, and then things that are not EPA approved.
Oh, yes, yes. So one of the things that are you still there or did I lose you?
Yeah, we're here. We can hear you.
Okay, fine. Oh, I did that to myself. I was just looking for that chart for you. Yeah, it's really, we're constantly bombarded with people selling products that are made of ingredients that do not really offer any protection, certainly nothing more than an hour, and they are being promoted and sold. The EPA doesn't specifically say that they don't work, they just aren't licensed by them or addressed by them. The CDC doesn't have any statement about it. And it's really a problem because these people think that they're protected. They put on these skin repellents, and I just got something in the mail yesterday that is about organic lawn control for ticks. You know, we don't have any organic lawn control for ticks, you know? So people are paying money. They're imagining that they're protected, and they're not protected. And it's really a bad situation because what we're doing is we're increasing their risk and they're more likely to get sick, and it exasperates. And, you know, it's outrageous that people are ripping them off like this. So I think that we really have got to get and I'd really like the CDC to come out with some kind of a statement, but I don't know how we really address this. It's a huge problem. Here it is, organic pest. Beware of ticks and mosquito, prevention is key. Organic pest management solutions provides effective and safe methods in eliminating unwanted pests. Family the most common tick diseases, Lyme, Babesia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and then it goes on to the mosquito diseases. And they talk about how much they charge to spray. Free estimates, fully licensed and insured, all major credit cards. And, you know, I receive many of these weekly. I don't know what we can do about it. I was just at a conference where they were selling all kinds of products that were totally ineffective. And so there's a group that's giving some free samples out at a conference that they're having.
Jill, I think that the avenue is the Federal Trade Commission if people are making inaccurate claims. And that was used, there's a company that makes an insecticide out of cedar oil, and FTC took action against them to get the product off the market.
Here's the problem. With the FTC, you've got to go for each and every product that you see and let them investigate it. That's a problem because there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, out there. I think we really need a statement of warning to the public, someplace that they will take note, and the news media or whatever and the states can warn people. So my way of looking at it is, if just as you saw the CDC put that thing out about the tripling of disease, every major newspaper carried it. It was on the TV. Somehow or another, I think we need something done like that. I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah, we had talked last time about, at least in the things that we're putting out, making a statement that if it's not included or it doesn't have an EPA registration number, then it's not a vetted solution. I know we had talked about that previously. I think that's something that's within our control. You know,
Frank, I understand that, but that isn't what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, let's take things like geranium oil and, you know, lavender and a whole bunch of the other oils that they put in these products and somewhere where it says these do not work.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be a bigger topic of discussion as we go down the line. It is past 2 here, Central Time, and so I think we have to end the call there. send me any information or updates to the group via the listserv. And we'll have a good month, folks. And you can be sure to reach me either via email or phone regarding the Public TIC Working Group. Thanks for the call.
If anybody